everybody, it's Romania Black, English teacher and speech coach by day, and anime and donghua reviewer and discusser by night. And I've had this channel for almost 6 years now, and it is very rare that when I do polls on Patreon to choose my new series that I'm going to watch, that we have ties. But we did! And so one of those series that tied for me to watch on this channel, we are starting today, and I am very, very excited. So, Gachiakuta. If you don't know me, I'm Romania Black, and I do blind reactions. I do very intense analytical discussions right after I watch, and I apply basically my knowledge as an English teacher and speech coach into whatever I watch and any of the nerdy knowledge that I've had growing up with anime and manga. And look, we had a poll over on my Patreon. 2 series got tied, and then we had a tiebreaker poll, and it was very close. So I decided I'll watch both series at the same time, and so that's kind of where we are. So one of those series was Lord of the Mysteries, which you can see on Saturdays, every other Saturday on my channel, but we're going to be watching this one every week, every Friday until I have finished all 24 episodes of this series. All I know about Gachiakuta is there are 24 episodes. That is it. That is it. I am going in completely blind, and we're going to see what we get out of this. So if you are new to the channel, please subscribe so you can see me every Friday looking at this series. Please give a like to the video if you enjoy it, and give a comment down below to tell me what your thoughts are. I will have a moderator going through my comments. I love to react to you all one-on-one in the comment section, as long as there are not spoilers. If there are spoilers, I will just give a heart to your comment so it will get out of my inbox, and then I can move on to the comments I actually am allowed to react and respond to because they don't have spoilers. So that's how I'm going to do it. Also, if you are new to this channel, I cannot obviously have the full video in the link for reasons, but if you go into the description, you'll see a link to the reaction. And so there'll be a little bit of a pause after this discussion that will tell you to do that, and then we'll come back and discuss the video, and I'll probably have screenshots up over here so that you can see it. But yeah, I am excited. I have no clue what I'm about to get into. I just know that my brother has seen this series and he liked it. I have had a few students in my classes that I've been like, what anime are you watching? And they're like, oh, Gachiakuta. And they liked it. I've heard it's great, and clearly the Patreon voters decided that it was as well. So that's what we're going to be getting into, but I am super excited. Before I begin though, if you are able to go onto my Patreon, you can see I have several tiers available. One of those tiers is the philanthropy tier, where I give a shout out in my videos to those who donate a few extra dollars each month to help me support me on the channel. Thank you all so much. I've reached a new subscriber goal here on YouTube, which is really exciting. So hopefully it will get more exposure of my videos that I take a lot of time to work on to talk about these series with you all, because I am very passionate about it. So I want to give a shout out. We've got some new ones this month to Alexandra Q, Aqua 2000, Amorphosilica, Alex Cornejo, Be Happy, Destiny Marie, Dana, Diana Williams, Daniel Ichu, Devorin, Damage 3245, Erica Fisho, Frank Acevedo, James Ghostly Turnip, Jessica Cullen, Jason N, Linden, Elfreya, Murphy Nicholas, Mia Himigofer, Jack Witt, Poppy, Rose Jennison, Rast, Sugamom, Sunspots, Shimoyama, Translucent Men, Violet Stardust, Yanin, Zero Anti-Zero, and Zakiel. Thank you all so much for supporting me, and to everyone on Patreon, and to those of you subscribed on YouTube, thank you all so much. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. But yeah, that's what I got. I have no clue going into this. I had the afternoon off. It's a little bit warm outside, so I'm like, I'll just go watch Gachiakuta. I've got some like decaf coffee pulled up because can't get too hyped. I'm already hyped up. And so we are going to get started and see what all we get. So with that being said, I'm going to pull up episode 1 here and get it ready with you all. Now, one thing I do want to make note, I am watching the Japanese sub because I always like starting with the sub. And then if the dub is good enough, I will watch the dub later on, but we start with the sub. So with that being said, we're going to get started with Gachiakuta episode 1, see what all this is about. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and I'll see you all on the other side. Well, that was interesting. Okay, man, there is a lot to talk about, a lot to dissect, a lot to speculate about. One thing I want you all to know is that I am a blind reactor. So as soon as I get done watching, I literally take a breath, get that settled, and then start immediately into the discussion. So I don't really take any extra time. I'm just giving you my generic thoughts right out the gate from this episode ending. I wanted to make this clear that my thoughts may change as we go. I am probably going to get things wrong. I am probably going to theorize and make assumptions and headcanons and things that will be proven wrong. But I am the type of person that I want the show to give me the answers. And so as I watch, my opinions and views may change because we are open-minded here. We are open-minded. Now, I did have there were like a few scant things that I was like, ooh, I kind of want to critique the show's opening and pilot on that. But I know some people don't like hearing that. They just want to hear the good stuff. So we're going to put any criticisms that Romania has, we're going to put it in the pit. Finna be in the pit at the very end of at the end of the discussion. So I'm going to save all of any critiques I have. We're going to put it in the pit and we're going to just talk about it at the very end of the discussion. So if you don't want to hear any of that, you won't have to. So we'll just go into the good stuff for now because this is an interesting premise. The animation is a combination of three things for me. It is the aesthetic is a combination of like four things for me. The whole like city that looks pristine versus the trash heap outskirts of the city is giving me number 6 vibes. He even had like a number 6 on his jacket. So I'm like, is this a similar author or writer? Is there a connection there? Is it a reference? But it was giving me number 6 vibes. The visual aesthetic with the style and the way that the characters are drawn seemed like a combination of 3 shows to me. One show I have not seen, which is Tokyo Revengers, but I've seen enough promotional stuff that there was like a little bit, I was like, there's a little bit of that. But the 2 main inspirations I thought of was Soul Eater. The style looks very Soul Eater. And then, I don't know, I've never reacted to it on this channel, but before I started my channel, I did read the manga for Dead Man Wonderland. Dead Man Wonderland, this aesthetic, this style of drawing with like the big eyes and the hair that's kind of chunky and like all this, that looks exactly like Dead Man Wonderland. I felt like I was having a flashback. I'm like, oh, interesting. So I don't know if this creator has anything to do with that series, but the aesthetic was giving me Dead Man Wonderland vibes. And I was like, okay, there's some similar motifs in the opening of that series too, but I'm not here to talk about Dead Man Wonderland. We're going to talk about Gachiakuta instead, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some inspiration going on there. Before I start into the screenshots, I want to talk about the voice actors, our main 3 in this one. Chiwa is voiced by Miku Ito, who seems like she's been in a lot of isekai. I don't know her voice actress from any other series, but she's been in a lot. Now, Toshiyuki Morikawa plays Regto, or the late Regto, and he's been in some things I have seen. I think it's hilarious that he does the Japanese dub of Nick Wilde. I could see that, especially with this character. But he also portrays a character from Demon Slayer that I was not expecting. I was like, oh, okay. He plays Kagaya in that series. I'm like, oh, I was not expecting that voice to be the same. I had recognized it from somewhere. He also is the Japanese voice actor for Tosen. He plays Shadow the Hedgehog, which is fun. He has also been in Ranma 1/2 in the remake. I'm trying to think if there's anything. In Naruto, he was Naruto's dad. Okay, what a typecast role. What a typecast role you've been in, sir. Other than that, he's been Sephiroth before in Final Fantasy VII. Okay, great. He's been Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Lego Star Wars dub. He's been in a lot of things. Also, oh my gosh, not Devimon, but he was Myotismon in Digimon. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. What a wild world. So he's been in quite a few things. I recognize him from some of this as I'm scrolling through. I want to get some of the earlier stuff. He's been in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Man, he is typecast. He was Kazuma Soma in Fruits Basket. This man has been typecast as an adoptive father figure in like so many anime. Man, they just gave him the script and they're like, you're used to it. He was like, I am. So, wow, how crazy. What a wild world. Okay, that's cool. He's been in a lot of other things as well as I'm scrolling through this, but he's been voice acting for quite a long time. You probably all will know other things that he has been in that I am not getting to. I'm just skirting like the most recent roles that he's been in, but I'm sure he's been in some other roles that y'all can tell me down below what he's been in. And he's Ishin! Oh my god! What? And he's Ishin Kurosaki! Are you kidding? What? Typecast. Obi-Wan, Ishin, typecast. Yes. Do you need a father figure to voice your anime? Well, go find Toshiyuki Morikawa and he will voice your father figure for your anime. That is crazy. Holy shit. Okay. Wow. Well, he's also been Obi-Wan Kenobi in like every Star Wars thing, which is kind of wild. Wow, now I'm curious to see like one of some of his earliest stuff is, because I just want to know. Wow, he's been back from like Inuyasha. This man's voice acting for like 30 plus years. That is so impressive. And he's been in Naru from One Piece. Okay, nice. He was Joe from Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, Yugi. I'm thinking of the English dub where he has a horrific Brooklyn accent. Yugi, you gotta believe in the heart of the cards. But man, he's been in a whole bunch of stuff. Like back into the 90s. This man's been voice acting. How old is this man? Not to be ageist, but I am curious because he's been voice acting for like 40 years. This is wild. Like back into like the early 90s, y'all. Back into the 80s. Holy shit. I am impressed. They were just like, hey, we're going to kill you off in like the first episode. Is that cool? And he was like, yeah, give me the role. Wow. So I kind of want to know like how old this man is, but just out of curiosity, because his professional photo looks amazing. But now I'm curious. Oh my gosh. So he's 59. Okay. He's been voice acting for like, he looks great for his age. Good job, sir. Good job. And then we have the voice actor that is playing our dear sweet Rudo. I only know him from 2 roles. He's only been voice acting for about 10 years, and he's done a few roles. He was Koda in My Hero Academia. What I know him most from, and he was in Fruits Basket as well. He was Naohito. What I know him from is from Blue Lock, where he was Igarashi, which is... I knew I heard that voice from somewhere. I'm like, where have I heard this voice? And it's Igarashi, so it has a similar cadence. I'm like, okay, Aoi Ichikawa. So good for him. He looks so young. But cool. I really like his voice for the protagonist, which, considering how melancholy and gloomy our protagonist is and kind of awkward, it's like kind of the perfect voice. I really love it. This man is like the other side of the coin from Tanjiro or Deku. He's like the other side of the coin. A very morose character to start out with, but I'm really excited. So let's get into talking about this series, because there's a lot to discuss. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, bring some screenshots. I like the motif of the TV. We're going to talk about that, but like you can see there's like this grainy aspect, like the static of a television set. As we get into this concept, the concept of if an object is treated with care, a soul will come to inhabit it. I really like that. And so we get this discussion, like we see kind of the graffiti and the stuff around town. I'm curious because here you have like this modern day environment where everybody's walking around. It does not look like the pristine city, but it doesn't look like the outskirts slums either. It looks pretty like in between, right? And so I don't know if this is supposed to represent a different side of the country or if this was before the city took over. But yeah, the concept of the trash can and the sword and everything is so interesting. It's such a great visual to start out with. I'm kind of all about it. And then when trash is thrown out, what comes to inhabit it? So I like the idea of if you care about something, a soul will come to inhabit it. Like maybe, something peaceful will come to inhabit it. But you throw it out and you get all this trash together. Will like a demon inhabit it? Will it welcome negative space or negative energy? It seemed at the very end like all this trash had formed this like sentience and it become like this demonic hellhound is what it looked like. So I'm going to be very curious we're going to talk about the pit here in a little bit, but already doing the very stereotypical, like the wardrobe of the people at the very beginning. I don't know if that was just to establish like in our world, you have your trash and everything. And then this is the parallel world where it's very Hunger Games, very District 1. The people in the pristine, their outfits look like they'd be in Seraph of the End. So interesting enough, everything's pristine and polished and like whitewashed. And then they throw their trash down the chute into these trucks that take it to like a landfill or to another facility to be like, composted or turned into like recyclable material or something. We'll see what ends up happening with it because he's in the pit. We'll see. Does it all get thrown into the pit? Into this giant underground landfill in this crevice in the earth? Who knows? We'll find out probably next episode, which I'm probably not going to wait to watch, by the way. I am going to ask the mods if I can watch the OP or not, because they didn't have an OP in this episode. The Edie song is great. The entire soundtrack of this series is great. I love the punk rock. I like the rock aesthetic. It's very fitting. I like it a lot. I'm curious, though. I do think that there is definitely a connection to our own world in a lot of what's going on thematically in this series. The idea of hyper-consumerism and also of disposable culture, it permeates our society in such ways. When I'm not doing my channel and I'm not reading manga or watching anime, I watch a lot of content about people talking about what's trending on TikTok or something, because I'm never on TikTok. And a lot of it is just like about overconsumption and about fast fashion, and how we are not a society in many parts of the world anymore that takes care of things. We don't try to repair things. We don't try to fix things. We're just like, oh, it broke, throw it out and get something new, because it's more convenient that way. And then we don't hold on to sentimental things anymore. We just throw it away because it's too much work to keep it in appearance, and it doesn't mean anything to us anymore. So it's really sad, because it's creating a culture where we don't hold on to anything. We just like dump it if we don't find value in it, or if it's too inconvenient to fix it and repair it and maintain it, which is not good for our world at all. This felt like I was getting like a 90s environmentalism kind of like underskirts with it, but it's just like really gritty and dark. Also, I'm assuming that the creator of this series is maybe someone that's like around my age, because I feel like they are inspired in a way by those like 90s environmental PSAs and like the Ghibli movies that were like, don't screw up the universe, we only got one of this. And they're just like, F it, this is what happens if you don't listen. And that's the impetus for this series. I feel like they're probably around my age. I don't know that for sure yet. But yeah, we'll just buy you a new one. And she's like, okay, well, I'll get a cat this time. I also think that like the see-through trash bags, everything's like to make it transparent what's getting tossed out. But yeah, I was curious why people would care whether or not we're going to talk about this character in the pit. We're going to talk about them. Why would they care if somebody raids the trash? But then the one guard says, you're bringing trash up above ground and it's tainting our pristine environment. But then they go back to the slums. But I get why they would not want somebody raiding the trash, I guess. It seems a bit hypocritical, but then again, in our own society, people get in trouble for like dumpster diving, and it's like, but why? You threw it out. So that hypocrisy exists in the real world, so we could question it all day long, but it is like a reflection of that. Humans think nothing of turning an object into trash, so what if they did that to people? And that is essentially what the pit is. The pit is just dumping people into the trash, like just taking them out as if they were garbage. There's clearly, I don't know if the series is going to take a stance on like restorative justice or not, and the fact that instead of trying to rehabilitate or help people, we just toss them aside without aiding them. There seems to be a message about that right off the bat. Now, if Rudo's dad is indeed a serial killer, then we've got some work to do, but we need to talk about some things as well that kind of go along with this. To dismiss, to never hold any value again. Again, I feel like the 6 on the side of Rudo's jacket is a reference to number 6, because there are some similar thematic elements in that series. So we've got Gachiakuta. Interesting. I have no clue what to expect now that we're in the pit. I respect that we just went there. We're just like, we're just in the pit already by the end of episode 1. We're not beating around the bush. I'm going to talk about that in the very end of the episode, but I was like, man, we're just going to get into it. I'm curious about all of these like glyphs and sigils and everything, and the imagery and the clouds with the eyes in them. There's a lot going on here. And so I feel like we're going to find that out next episode. So that's why I really want to watch ahead, because I want to see what's going on here. This guy looks like he just got out of the Emerald City and is about to be in the Wizard of Oz with the big old bucket hat on him. And there's like the moon and the sphere, almost like half of an eye. I want to know more about the city. I want to know more about the setting that we have in here. So yeah, so he gets in the pit, well, not the pit yet, but he gets into the trash. And he's like, you're threatening our beautiful city by hoarding trash. I'm like, you don't even know where he's from. You don't even know. And so I was like, I just tell him to go away and take the trash and leave. But no. I also like that the people are disgusted by the trash. They're like sitting there trying to wipe it off. they've kind of like, they're not as, it's definitely painting it as the people of the city are wealthy but weak, and then the people in the slums have a strength because, you know, they're used to like growing up in this filth. I can't believe they shot him though. Also, want to talk about, so this point here where he turns around and they're shooting at him, there's a moment where they shot at him and the bullets are like about to hit him, and he like, in that moment, flies out of the way. I don't know if there was some kind of power that activated it or if it was just Matrix where they're like, oh, just showing the bullets getting close to him and then him running away. I'm assuming it's the latter. He doesn't actually have any superpowers that let him do it. Although, he did become a literal spider monkey and hop onto the side of this building, so who even knows? But he's got like Aladdin powers. He does get hit in the side though, which sucks. I'm glad that Regto got his arm fixed. And then he ends up calling him a bunch of shitheads. I'm not threatening anything. I could instantly see why Rudo would be so aggravated from the start, because he's just trying to get trash to make a living, and he's not hurting anybody in the process. He already has a lot of stigma against him based on his, you know, ancestry. So I instantly feel like, you know, Rudo is a character I feel like a lot of people can relate to. And you know what? In this economy, a lot of people are struggling, and probably in situations that are not too adjacent from Rudo's situation. Maybe not with the serial killer background with his dad, but probably struggling and being like, it's nobody's business. I'm just trying to survive in this world. So he instantly is a bit relatable, right? I'm wondering why they call this episode The Sphere. Like, The Sphere. I don't know if it's just like, the world, and this is the way the world is, and that's what it's referring to. Maybe we'll find out more about it. I'm curious. So yeah, they're the pristine of this town. Everybody's in there. What's funny is like the people in the slums are wearing pretty much the same clothes as these people, just they're a little bit dingier. I'm curious how Regto was here in the city and was taking notes and doing things like that and had the book. The book is something that the masked person went and got after he had killed Regto. So what was he writing down? Why was it important? And why did the masked figure want this book that Regto had? Was Regto meeting up with the masked person? Did the masked person stalk them? Why was Regto in the city? Because the people in town are like, oh, a tribesfolk, ew. But like, how'd he get there? Why was he allowed to go there? What was going on? I was going to question at the very beginning, I was going to save it for the pit, but I might as well talk about it now. Why didn't anybody question, like, the person that looks really super freaking scary, like, standing there by their trash bins? Why didn't nobody talk about that? So, these people all seem like gossipy people who observe everything, and trust, I am from a very gossipy rural Midwest town. People observe everything and micromanage seeing every little detail in the world around them. They would not notice that man. So, or woman. Could be a woman. We don't know. Could be a woman. The Rudo thinks it's a man, but I don't know. We didn't hear them talk. So, but yeah, did you hear? And then they talk about how there was another trash raid. And so Regto kind of knew about what was going on. What kind of person runs off with the trash? I'm sure it was one of those tribes folk. And then he goes ahead and leaves. So they're like, yeah, how disgustingly filthy is. I wish they'd stick to their side. Like, how do they not? How do they get permission to go in? I guess there's like access into the city, but I'm surprised that there's access into the city, because if you want to keep your city clean, why are you letting them access it? Interesting indeed. The stark contrast is pretty wild. Pretty wild. Although, I will say, although look back there, I guess some of those buildings look a little bit better off than these. I don't know if that's just an artistic thing. I don't know. I will say this. I have been to cities where you go down one road and they're $1 million houses that are like brick and ornate and beautiful. And then you turn the corner and go down the next street and it's kind of dangerous. So I've been in cities where that has been the case. It's not as starkly pronounced as it is here, where it's a little bit exaggerated, but it's not far off. So that's setting up the stage of how this world is, that we've got these slums. And the whole city's talking about the trash raider. It's got to be him again. I wish he'd knock it off. Otherwise, the apostles are going to come down. So already Rudo has a bad reputation. Everybody knows he's a trash raider. and they all look down on him and think he's going to get them in trouble with the authorities inside the city. So that part makes sense of why they'd be so eager to just get him away. They already think he's a little bit a blip in society, and he's like a little like burning mark there. Chiwa disappoints me in a lot of ways, but I'll talk about her in the pit. We're gonna talk about her in the pit. She disappoints me a little bit, but we'll talk about it then. But anyway, he's like the wealthier, throwing out perfectly usable things. Now, I will definitely concede with that and note that years ago, I'm talking like 12, 13 years ago when I was in college, my friend and I stayed in an apartment, and there was a big dumpster like on one side of the apartment, and the apartments were not nice, but they were decent, right? And there were some pretty like wealthy college kids that lived there. And my friend and I would like go by the dumpster at the end of the semester because people would just throw out they'd throw out full, never been used bedding, like with tags still on it that they got for Christmas or something, and they didn't like it, and they just throw it out by the dumpster. My roommate got like a TV one time. They dropped like a 36-inch plasma screen TV and like in the box put it outside by the dumpster because they just didn't want it. My friend was like, this is a perfectly usable TV, and like took it. And like people would do that all the time, like perfume bottles, like gaming systems, like stuff they didn't want. I was like, these privileged college kids were like just throwing stuff out. And my roommate and I, who were not privileged, we were just like living off cucumbers, were like, take it. So I definitely get Rudo's plight of wanting to like refurnish this stuff. And she's like, you really love trash. And he says, it's not about that. And I think that's pretty important for Rudo's character, where he's like, it's not about me liking trash. It's about the idea of everything having value and worth. And that's kind of what he's getting to the point of. Rudo is someone who has not been designated a lot of value in his existence. And so he wants to prove that, no, even somebody like me, I'm not trash. This stuff around me is not trash. It has value to someone or something. And I'm going to try to prove that. So in any case, these guys show up. And again, reinforcing the idea that Rudo is looked down upon, but also giving us some backstory. They clearly talk about the gloves, which we find out later. Everybody in town knows that Rudo has these like crazy scarred up, marred hands, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But they then talk about his dad. You're hanging out with him is a bad idea. He's a son of a homicidal maniac. So we get a little backstory with the slums. We find out they were originally built to lock away criminals, and we're their descendants or something. That opens up a lot of questions and things. I'm like, one, it's very interesting that they just locked all the people that were considered criminals out of the city and were like, here, fend for yourselves. And then that opens up some questions we're going to save for the pit. But it does bear to mind that, like, it makes me look at this kid and go, okay, so you're the descendants of criminals. I know that Rudo's just one step removed, one branch removed with his dad to him, but you all are basically admitting that you are the descendants of criminals. So it's a little pot calling the kettle black to get too mad at Rudo, right? We try to rehabilitate our image. So I guess being like, we're on our best behavior, so being on our best behavior will make us better than others. And there's definitely a commentary there about how elitist parts of society try to pit people under them against each other so that you're tearing at each other rather than focusing your attention on the parts that should probably be paid attention to, which are the elitist assholes who are doing this to you. So instead of like banding together and being like, wait a minute, those people are the ones that are the jerks. Why are we letting them be in charge? Instead, you're fighting amongst yourselves. And so it's setting up that kind of mentality here with the boys saying this about Rudo. And they said they were doing their best to clean up their image, but then his dad, quote unquote, screwed it all up by going on a killing spree inside the slums. So there are some questions there, like, why did the dad go on the killing spree if he was a serial killer? What about the mom? What about Regto picking up Rudo as a baby? There's details there that we don't know, that have not been elaborated upon, that we probably need to find out at some point. But yeah, you could tell Rudo's very upset about it. And he's like, if you hang out with him, they'll assume you're just as bad as he is. Like, that's like that guilt by association, right? And Chiwa seems like she doesn't quite believe it. And they're like the eyes of a criminal, like father, like son. So already the entire town, with the exception of Chiwa, was pretty much against him, saying that he was no better than his dad, whatever. So, interesting. One day you're going to be a murderer. And he's like, why would I? And she was like, well, that was really awful of them to say. And she's like, well, I believe in you. You're a good person who couldn't kill anybody. And he's like, oh, yeah, is that true? Like, he seems really smitten with her. And I think he's more smitten with the idea of somebody being nice to him and believing in him that he wouldn't hurt somebody, rather than just assuming that he's just like going to be like his dad, right? But, and he's so adorable. He's just kind of like awkward, but kind of sweet, where he like is going to give her like the toy, and it's really cute. And of course she gets interrupted when the mom shows up. But anyway, the foster dad, Regto, saw it all go down and then gives him a hard time about it later. I really like Regto. Regto has the very stereotypical foster dad parental figure kind of sleazy dad design, which I really like. I like Regto's design. I like how he like teases him, being like, you need to like, if you're trying to get Chiwa's attention, this is what you need to do. He's like, anyway, let's talk about your little trash raid. I love that he gets serious. He's like, excuse me, sir, what were we doing last night? And Rudo's like, I don't want to talk about it. I love the setup of this room, though. Like, it looks like a haberdashery. It just looks like a little shop of knickknacks, and everything has graffiti on it. There's like all these antiques, like the clock and all of this. It also looks like it's been graffitied by like a 5-year-old, which maybe Rudo did when he was a kid. It's very cute. I like this little setup that they have, the two of them. Let me handle things until you're grown up. And he's like, they found you last night, though. And then they talk about basically he took in Rudo as a baby and took care of him, and Rudo is appreciative of him. And then he fixes his bandages. Now, the thing about the thing, he's like, it's not that bad. The wounds that my dad left me with. That is crazy. That looks like not just a burn. That looks insane. Like these blackened hands that are burned and have these lines across them. It looks kind of supernatural. So I'm not sure what we're going to get with that. But they don't just look like burned hands. They look like there's some really crazy stuff. So the rule of the city is if you mess up, then in front of everyone, I like that the city, it's all on a slope. The slums are on a slope. Like you have high on the hill as the pristine city. Then you have the wall, and then you have the slums on the outside. And it all leads to the edge of the slum where there's a pit. And then like there's a cliffside and the pit is down below. So they make everyone in the slums watch someone get thrown into the pit, seemingly to their death, though not the case. He's like, you should take care of yourself and the things you care about. My hands have been pitch black for as long as I can remember. I like when you have the flashback, the shot of the faces. I don't know if you've ever played like Jack in the Box games, but these look like the quiplash like emojis. But I like the way that the artist focuses only on the eyes. Like there's no mouths, nose, or any other features. It's just these judgmental eyes watching Rudo, which again was giving me very Soul Eater vibes a little bit with that. But yeah, it wore down my spirit a lot when I was a kid until Regto gave me these gloves. And there you go. They reduced the pain, and I owe him more than I can ever repay him. So yeah, he's all teasing him about how you need to give the stuff to Chiwa before she gets, taken by somebody else. He's like, I'm saying this for your own good. I'm curious who this person is. I'm just going to say their feet look very small. Well, I don't know. Their feet look kind of small. They have broad shoulders, but I feel like I don't know. I think it's a woman. I think it could be a woman. I don't know. Maybe it's a man that's just kind of more petite. I don't know. Is it the dad? Did the dad get his way out of the pit? Doesn't seem like that's a possibility, but I'm curious why this person? Why did they kill Regto? What was going on? If you can't smile with your own power, then think of someone. Then learn to act like someone who can. Interesting. I guess the way that they draw Rudo looks so awkward sometimes, but it's kind of adorable. I don't know. I like it. So he goes up to the top of the hill and he sees where they are, the trash ends up in the pit. Anyone who commits a crime eventually ends up in the pit. And yeah, it looks absolutely terrifying. Like, it's just this ravine that stretches on endlessly. Like, that's actually scary and terrifying. And maybe has a sentient trash monster inside of it that is like a hellhound. Who knows? That's so gross. But yeah, also the fact that the ring's on the middle finger, not the ring finger, I'm curious about that person. So I hear the blackness swallowed up my father. What happens to the people sent down there? So then he and Chiwa have this conversation. And basically she's like, you know, they built the slums around the edge of the city so they could drive it into our heads. If you do anything bad, it's the pit for you. Everyone has to see the executions. And she's like, I don't want to see you thrown down there. You know, if you put yourself in danger and get caught just for that, you could end up being sent to the pit. And then she says, you know, Recto worries about you because he loves you as well. And then she kind of admits that she likes him. And then that's when he gives her the toy. Like, he gives her the doll, the stuffed animal that he fixed up. And he's like, you might not like it since it came from the dump, but here you go. And she's like, oh, I'll treasure him forever. He's lovely. And then he runs back, like, completely freaking out because he's actually given the girl the toy and he's kind of made like a semi-confession to her and he wants to tell Regto all about it. Now, when the apostles are going around, the apostles don't recognize Rudo because they didn't see his face. They just saw the hood up on him when he was raiding the trash. But I'm like, why are the apostles there in the first place? It feels like a setup, but I don't know why. I don't know if they were looking, because they instantly went to Regto's house. So were they investigating Recto and the hooded person and then stumbled across Rudo killing him and then just went from there? Like, we need to arrest someone and blame someone. So you're here. Let's do it now. I mean, that would track, but I'm curious why they were there to begin with. The moment he like opened the door and like it automatically opened and it was dark inside, I was like, oh no, something bad's happened. And so he's like, oh, welcome back, Rudo. And instead, it's like a fake out. He sees Rudo, or he thinks he does, and instead it's the person with the mask who's like been stabbing Regto with this giant ass blade. And it looks like they had a scuffle and a fight and they took him down. But why? Why do that? Why the blade? Why did they go after Regto? What's their history? What's the point? Rudo tries to do something and gets knocked up against the wall. And then whatever the book is, see, like that, here's the thing. When the masked person comes down to reach for the book, that, I got dainty wrists. That looks like a dainty wrist. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that looks like a dainty wrist reaching down to grab that. So I think it's a woman. I don't know. I could be wrong. Did Recto scorn her? I would not be surprised. But but anyway, why do they want the book? Why do they want the book? Because they just end up leaving. And then Regto gives Rudo this. He tells Rudo to run because he knows Rudo's probably going to get held accountable if he's seen. And he says, change this shit heap of a world. Now, there's a difference between changing the world and ruining the world. We'll see. Of course, this is like the friggin' lights went out in Georgia. They don't even give, there's like a make-believe trial. Slap the sheriff on the back with a smile saying supper's waiting for home, I gotta get to it. And we're just gonna throw this kid into the pit. Yep. And nobody is surprised. They all think that by association he's a murderer because of his dad and that he's filth. And I mean, the moment you saw Chiwa, you should have known that she wasn't going to support you. He's like, somebody needs to listen to me. And then, you know, he reached out to her, find the culprit. Now, whether or not we'll talk about it with her in the pit. But I have some thoughts. But they end up throwing him in. And he's like, you all are the real filth here. You've got eyes and ears. Now, okay, there's the masked being. I feel like that's a woman. I feel like it's a woman. I don't know, because it showed their face. Those lips looked feminine. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe they're non-binary. Who knows? And then you see him as... But they reached down the mask, and they had the other thing over the top of them? I'm so curious. Huh. And he's like, that's him. Well, maybe not. The animation of Rudo getting dropped into the pit is wild. That is crazy. Also, and of course, Rudo, who has been somewhat disillusioned by everything that's happened to him so far in his life, and he's a kid, immediately is like, well, this is it. You all suck. Everyone around me sucks. So what I'm going to do is just curse all of you, and if I get back out of here, I'll murder you all. Now, not exactly the conclusion I would jump to, but you can tell by this kid, by how he's been raised, that that's just what he believes. This part here was interesting, though, where he is looking over, and there's this thing that looks, I don't know, like a big-ass worm, like a ring, like something from Neon Genesis. Like, what is this? What the fudge is that? What is that? It looks like almost a hand curled too. Like, what? What? I don't understand what that is. I'm very curious. We don't seem to know, and I like the TV coming off. And then he wakes up in the pit, which is just like everybody's garbage. And it feels like at some point, this part of the pit, it's like you were at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and there was like it feels like there was people that lived down here, because there's telephone lines and electrical lines, and then something happened and everybody just started throwing their trash, like they moved up the mountains. I'm so curious. They sent me the pit. Now, they said it was a giant dump site. Uh-huh. But then the pit where all the filth sends up all the trash. That is friggin' cool. This big trash demon. That is crazy. Crazy. For a moment, I thought this was going to go like the Toy Story around the motif. It really was hell. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm so curious. I want to know about this trash hellhound. I want to know all the things. I need to know what's going on. So, interesting. I'm very encouraged by this first episode. Rudo, I feel bad for Rudo. I want the best for our boy. I don't know what to think about his immediate, like, I'm not like my dad that's going to kill everyone. And by the end of the episode, he's like, I'm going to kill everyone. It's like, well, he has his reasons. I will say, I told you all any critiques I had of any episode, I would say for the very end with the pit. So I might as well talk about those real quick. There's only like two. There's only two things from this episode that I was like, oh, and knowing me as a reactor, and if you've seen, I have like 3,000 videos on this channel, so you'll probably get the patterns as I go, but I'm very driven by character work. So I like the character so far with Rudo. I'm very curious to see like what we get out of his character and the people he meet down the pit, because clearly he's going to meet some people down in the pit. He ain't just go walk around and see nobody. So that's going to be interesting. My one thing is Chiwa's character. If they came to tell us that she was like, oh, I believed in you, and she walked away with the doll. If they did that, where she was like, oh, I believe in you, and I believed in you, and then she's like, you know, whatever, and she just walked away. If it was all an act, and she is actually going to be trying to figure out the culprit behind the scenes, I'd be like, okay, cool. She's just trying to, but why would she's trying to save face in front of all these people so that she's not ostracized? I would get that, but I get they are kids, but man, children's fickle emotions. Like 1 minute she's like, I believe in you and I love you and all of this stuff. And then the next minute she's like, actually you're a murderer's son and I hate you. I'm like, girl, he had an alibi. He was with you when the murder took place. Like, do you think he just ran home joyful that you gave him the rabbit and he killed his father figure in the same breath? Like, I don't know. I'm sure somebody can make the argument that they're kids and that he's had this stigma, but it feels kind of... My only critique at this point is that it's very melodrama, like, oh my God, the world's the worst and people are the worst and everybody's the worst and Rudo is so justified because everyone around him is the worst. I don't know. I want there to be... I was excited because Regtos seemed like to be someone that could ride that morally gray line in this world, but now he's dead. So I'm curious to see what we get. I don't really like the character work on Chiwa so far. It feels like it jumps to a conclusion way too fast. And I almost kind of wish that, again, I'm only on episode 1. I don't know. I wish they'd spent like another episode with her questioning and showing us the process and trial, but they just get it done immediately. I guess they were just waiting for this opportunity to throw him into the pit. I don't know. We'll see. But there's some really cool concepts here, and I'm really excited to see how this story goes with it. It just felt like a few character work plotline things were super rushed in this first episode to just get to the pit and get him thrown in. But I get that. In a lot of manga and stories, we have to immediately get to the plot and get to it. So, with that being said, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in episode 2. I want to know who he's going to meet in the pit and how they are going to be different or similar to the people that were above ground. Because the people above ground are the worst of the worst and judgmental, as all can be. How are the people in the pit going to be? Because supposedly the people in the pit are the murderers and the criminals and the people who are the worst. So will it be exactly as the people said when they put them down there? Or will we find out that maybe they were not so much? We'll have to see. But anyway, I'm super excited to see what's going to happen. I hope you all are as well. I'm excited. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts down below. If you are going to spoil, please put spoiler tags and be like, Romania, don't read spoilers, and then skip a couple lines and then say your piece for the people in the comments and y'all can talk about it down there. Otherwise, if there are spoilers, I will just heart them and move on. But if your comments are where the mods say I can read them, I am so excited to read your comments, talk to you about this series so far, and see where it takes us. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 2 of Gachiakuta, and I'll see you then.